been so long. Surprised I remembered how. There you go. On.
Here we are, back at the fireside chat.
Welcome back to the pod.
Beautiful
teas.
Beautiful day to have a fire and talk about. We got a lot to talk about.
Well, I figured tea would be appropriate since we're spilling the tea today.
Oh yeah, we are. Yeah.
Even though I tend to always like the tea, but.
And if you never heard spilling the tea, it comes from Josh's kids. I'm sure educated you on what that is, because I never would have heard it if it wasn't for my nephew.
Yeah, it's tea time, they'd always say. Where's all the drama in life? We want to talk about the drama. Spilling the tea.
Yeah. More important than drama is... I got a bug on my mic.
You got a bug on your mic? Well,
Yeah,
apparently you have sensitivity to that. Knock your Jocko over. You know, a man would have just crushed it with his finger.
No, this bug. This is the kind of bug that
Is it earwig?
could bite you, yeah.
Oh, Jesus, you baby. There's earwigs everywhere.
Is there?
In this valley, dude, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, just leave it alone. No, they don't bite you.
They could pinch you.
Jesus, you child. Oh, my God. Okay, it's dead. You got it. Here. Your ass about knocked that over.
More importantly than any tea is Josh is coming off the backside of a pronghorn hunt.
That I am. Yeah, it was a good time.
I don't see your belt.
I lost the belt. I did.
Yeah.
I did, but it wasn't for a lack of effort. I can promise you that.
That's cool.
So a little breakdown.
Yeah, let's start right from the beginning. You got history with this hunt, right?
Yeah, this is my fourth year going antelope hunting with the Team Speed Goat, called. That's where the belt came from. That was Brandon's creation. Papy added to it, and I'll have to get you a picture of it. You can put on the thumbie or something. We got
That'd be cool.
a cabinet door that he made that says like Team Speed Goat, founding members, all our. I think I'm the sergeant at arms if I remember right in this thing. And he's got to make a whiskey cabinet, and each of us has to put a bottle in it. And when a member of the group dies, we all have to just sit down and drink the bottle together. Yeah, and everyone's getting all teared up. And God damn it, Papy, you're going to make us cry. All that stuff. But, yeah, it's cool. And I've actually got he had a preliminary one made on a piece of particle board or something like that. And I have it down at the shop. I'm going to leave it in the shop. It's pretty dope. But in any event, rough draft. Yeah, we got into Brazil, which is where we were hunting antelope, because I'm not telling you where we were, because I know you all want to know. We were in Brazil. So, get down there with a couple hours of daylight left, drop the camper, start driving around, cruising around, and seeing goats. And we were already, I bet you, by the time it got dark, we had seen more goats than we saw all of last year.
Oh, wow.
In 2 hours. Last year was terrible, though. And so my theory, and I believe this proves my theory, is I think those goats migrate as it gets hot and dry, farther and farther down. And we were...
Based on their water situation.
Yeah, and we were farther up in Brazil than we were last year.
Was this a high water year or a low water year?
I'm pretty sure it was more of a drought down there. But in any event, so if my theory of the water just never went away up high and the grass never got dry up high, they just never came down. And I think they migrate a long ways down there. Well, in any event, that would meant that there wasn't like a shortage of goats. They just never made it to your unit.
Right.
And where we were from where we were last year was closer to that higher elevation where they would migrate from in Brazil. And, dude, so many goats. Just freaking antelope everywhere. It was good.
Was it
good
the best
to see.
you've ever seen it?
Oh, hands down. Not even close.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so my theory is they were in other units and stayed concentrated, and the people that had tags and whatever those units were in Brazil probably had a good year, but everybody else didn't, would be my assumption. And that kind of proved it to me.
Yeah.
Like there's no way they were having like a massively bad year, because there were a lot of good-sized goats, like mature goats, 4-year, 5-year, 6-year-old goats.
That's good to see.
If they lost a ton of goats, those goats wouldn't have made it.
Right.
So, and lots of moms with fawns and the whole thing. Like this wasn't a bad functional die-off, I think. So, anyway, nobody got one the first evening. Next morning.
So you guys rolled into camp that evening. You had time to seek out.
Had like enough time to jump in the Jeep, jump in my expedition, drive different ways, and start glassing. Just see what you find. Take off and go. And then the next morning, Bobby and I went out.
What time did you wake up this morning?
Today or that morning?
No, that morning.
5 a.m. And where the time zones are in your relation to the time zone where we are in Brazil, we're way west in the time zone. So it doesn't get like visible shooting light till almost 7.
That's too much of a hint. You better not talk about time zones and relative location.
Hey, there's 2 time zones in Brazil. You don't know where I was.
Yeah.
But in any event, it doesn't get like you couldn't send an arrow and see something until almost 7 o'clock.
But I was wondering, on your pronghorn program, do you wake up early or no?
We're up at 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we were up at 5.
Out of camp by?
So 6:30.
Does Papy cook up a big breakfast?
No, we don't have breakfast.
No, that's cool.
So traditionally, there's a big batch of breakfast burritos made that usually end up being like a late breakfast, early lunch, and you just take them with you. Mm-hmm. Eat it cold, which it's actually really good cold, especially if you put some hot sauce on it. But that didn't happen too terribly often, actually. They did make a big batch the first evening because we went. We had Brandon's son with us, Brandon's son Cole, and Cole shot his first antelope. Took a little time to recover and ended up burning up the most of the day because we all went and helped him. And Bobby and I took off after he finally recovered his goat, and it was like 5 or 4:30. Normally, we'd hunt in the morning, go back to camp for 3-4 hours, and hunt in the evening, and cook stuff in the middle of the day and cook overflow so you had something to eat later.
Is that try to avoid the heat, basically?
Yeah, and it wasn't that hot though. So, but because of the circumstances of Cole's goat, we were all occupied most of the day.
Occupado,
but got it done, and Cole killed his first antelope, which is pretty cool.
How old is Cole?
Cole is 16.
And how far of a shot did he have to make?
I wasn't there when he shot it the first time. It needed to follow up. So
yeah,
and I don't remember how far. I think it was 70 yards, something like that. A little bit of a poke, right? But hats off to the kid for getting it done. Way to go, Cole! And
yeah, good job, Cole.
And Bobby and I took off after that and went to another side of the area there, and spotted some goats. And I dropped Bobby off by a dried out creek bed so he could sneak up the creek bed because they're out in the open, right? They're like you're having a hard time sneaking up on one.
Yeah, you got to use terrain features.
You got to use terrain features, and this particular spot in Brazil didn't have very many. Like it was pretty wide open. So I drop Bobby off, and then I go down the other side of him in case he pushes the goats into where I am, right? And it's going to be a bit embarrassing, but I'm going to be honest. I drive past where I was going to park and get out and wait because I needed to take a shit. Yeah. So I went down to the next little cutoff road and drove up to get off the main drag that I was on, which is all BLM. It's all not really roads, but they're roads. And got out to take a shit and jumped 2 bucks. right as I'm mid squat. God damn it. So they run back over towards Bobby. So I'm like, oh, great. I'm going to screw this up for Bobby. So I zip back down and go down to a different position. Go around the corner, park, get out, wait. And just about the time I got there, those 2 bucks start running by me. They're a little ways from me, but run by me. And then a buck that I had actually missed early that morning before we got the call about Cole's goat. He did the matrix on me. Like Bobby was watching with his binos, and I shot, and he could see my fletchings come right across his front shoulder where it's supposed to, and he turned just like that right as the arrow got there and just missed him. Well, I see him chasing the same doe and fawn that he was following in the morning. I think they were starting to estrus or whatever they call goat.
Rut or whatever,
yeah. Well, I'm assuming I don't know if it's estrus or what the hell they call
Females.
it. But female groovy glands. And they came running by me too, but much closer, and kept going. And then he came back and got to a decent point and stopped. And I drew back, put the pin on him, and waylaid him. Bobby saw the whole thing from about 600 yards away with his binos. And
this is day 2?
This is the first full day. So I don't know if you really called day one when we got there at like 6 o'clock at night.
So the same day Cole shot his.
You
got out after.
I got out after it, and it was the biggest goat I've ever killed. Really tall goat, but one of his horns on the end of the back quarter or half inch was broke off.
And we don't talk about how far of a shot?
No, we do not. We do not disclose such information. Although hats off for Josh Bomar not being afraid to disclose how far away he shot some at. My goodness. But yeah, got it done.
Well,
and,
if I ever make a real long shot on a goat, I'm disclosing it.
Good for you. I'm happy for you. You should do that. So and it's like an hour.
And this is more or less than last year's goat.
Less.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that makes 3 years in a row that I've killed a goat.
Right. Yeah.
In any event, you're allowed to drive onto the ground to recover.
That's because you can shoot far enough towards like the buffer zone of like. I don't want to say it's easy to get to a goat to the buffer zone, but there's a zone you can get to that's not that hard to get to, and then to get 50 yards closer is really difficult.
Yeah, well, when it's open like that and there's no terrain, because it's open, like really, really open. But in any event, Bobby gets up to me and we go back to the X-Bed and drive it to it because it's okay to drive on to recover an animal.
Yep.
Took some pictures, threw him in the back seat, and tagged him, threw him in the back seat, drove back to camp. We still had like an hour, so we drove up from camp, gutted him out, and left him in the back of the machine. Sat down in camp, got shorts, T-shirts, flip-flops, sunglasses on, sitting back in camp waiting for the guys to show up. And they roll in, and they're walking over. What'd you guys see? And I turn around. We didn't see shit. And then I walk back to the expedition, open up the door. Other than what I call it. Oh, Jesus. Other than this donkey, and his head falls out of the thing. And so I really thought, because I hadn't seen anybody even have an opportunity to go that big in the whole time I'd hunted with them.
Yeah.
I thought I had it wrapped up, just wrapped up solid, right?
Yeah, you thought it was over.
Oh, I had the belt in the front seat, pulled the belt back out of the front seat, put it on. It's back where it belongs, that kind of thing. It was great.
So how did your shot feel? Like
solid, was great.
Yeah. But
I only had the other one where he matrixed me too. I was like, that thing's dead. That's perfect. And he would have been if he didn't pull
that does happen, yeah.
Yeah. So that does happen.
And you shot what broadhead into it?
A beast.
Yeah. And how far did it go in?
That's a tricky question, really. It was
Did
not
it exit or no?
No.
One hole or two?
No. It was one hole because it broke off, but it hit something really hard when it broke off. So it's hard to, ascertain what should happen.
Got into the cavity and broke off.
Yeah. So, but in any event,
how far did the goat go?
Nowhere.
Oh, really?
Nowhere.
That's nice.
It went nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hit him in the shoulder? Did you break his shoulder?
All right. Okay. So did
you hit him in the spine?
Just let me talk. God damn it. So I wasn't going to get too particular about this, but because I'm going to get shit about it. But I was put it right in the middle of him, and he whirled, and it hit him in the back of the head and dropped him like that.
I've done that.
So it buried it like right between the skull and number one, and buried up to like I couldn't see the whole pharaoh was in it, and dropped him in his tracks. And then I ran up to him and shot him again, hit him right here, he was laying on his back, and buried into his spine and poked out the other side of his spine. But he was like this. But if you're still moving, I'm shooting. I'm not gonna chase that thing forever in a day. But yeah, he whirled and his head turned and rotated right to where my pin was and hit me in the back of the
That's
head.
crazy.
Yeah, tried to matrix me again.
I've actually shot two animals right here, not on purpose.
Yeah, that was not on purpose by any means.
Yeah,
but the shot was good and it went where I pointed.
Yeah.
He just whirled and that's where it happened to be there.
Yeah.
And so my theory from now on, when you're shooting goats because they're so squirrely, is just aim in the middle.
Yeah.
No tucking shoulders. Because when he matrixed me, that's happened to me like 4 times where the shot's great, the arrow's traveling and they whirl. And I thought about it a lot and I went, when they whirl, the mass is still in the middle. It's rotating.
Right.
So if you aim in the middle, you're still going to hit them. And they're not, and we're out there, like even if you don't make a perfect shot, it's so open.
And it's
can't hide.
And it's mostly pretty binary. If you hit a goat, it usually will pass.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
But the big thing is you're not going to lose them.
Right.
Because there's not cover. Right. There's not like big chunks of things they can go hide in where you're like, where'd he go?
Yeah, they're not going to the aspen trees or anything.
No. So, but yeah, he literally dropped.
Yeah.
Pile of dirt.
Yeah.
So the next morning, we get up, Feeling pretty confident, feeling good. I'm now the wheelman for hauling people to places and dropping them off and picking them up. And
Yeah,
that
you're
kind of
like the
thing.
camp chef.
Well,
right,
now
at
we
this point
have now we have 2 wheelmen because we had 6 guys, so it's 2 rigs and you go in different directions, right? So Cole's the wheelman and I'm the wheelman. And who did we grab? I think we grabbed Brandon because we needed another person to equal it out. So we had 2 shooters with each group. And we grabbed Brandon and we drove up to this other area where it was actually close to where Cole shot his, but we hadn't worked this other angle. And there is, we remind you, we're on BLM road, so it's not a road. It's just a dirt trail through a field. And we see a freaking 60 of them coming out of the field, zip up there, get out, get away, get a position away. And I'm ranging for Bobby, and Bobby sluices one. And same thing, world Texas heart shot.
Oh my god!
Literally cut his heart in half through his butt.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's just whirling on axis.
That's pretty.
And I had shared this philosophy with all the guys. I'm like, just aim in the middle because their mass is going to stay in the middle when they turn because they always freaking turn. It's rare that they don't. You'll shoot 4 or 5 before you shoot one that doesn't turn when you fire. That it just stands there and takes it. The one I shot last year stood there and took it. He didn't move. But every other time I've gone and hunted, they're always moving when your arrow's coming.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to aim towards the middle. Anyway, Bobby nails his, and him and I go get to it. Called the other guys so we could all take pictures and see it. And hey, great. And then, by the way, there's like 60 antelope going that way, so you might want to go over there and see where they end up at and see if you can get in a decent ambush position. Bobby and I grab his, drive back to camp, got it out. Get everything up. So now we got 3 antelope. So Bobby and I are loading up the truck and driving back to a walk-in cooler that's an hour and a half away or so. So we can cool the stuff down because we got 4 more days or whatever, 4 more days to hunt. And so we drive back, get everything, start hanging everything up, and the phone rings or the phone beeps, and Brandon shot a freaking goat and a big goat. And so we get everything done and we drive back. And shows it to me, and it's way older than mine. Like, it's got a pumpkin head on it, just a giant freaking skull, and really thick horns. But our rule is length, is each beam length, period, nothing more.
And you just run like a tape.
You run a tape up. Bobby's the official measurer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby's the official measurer because he is actually an official scorebook measurer. He's licensed for it and whatnot. So we're like, well, Bobby's measuring everything. Nobody else's input. Right, and they measured up Brandon's and measured up mine, and my intact, complete side was a 1/4 inch longer than either of Brandon's, or it was either an 1/8 or a 1/4. I think it was a 1/4. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the other side was broke off enough that the 2 combined, Brandon's was longer. So Brandon got the belt.
Nice.
And he's had a lot lately, so I'm glad he got it. And he did buy it originally, and he bought it because he wanted to win it. So Brandon gets the belt this year because
and he just got a big old thick pumpkin head, huh?
Oh, dude, just a beautiful goat.
Yeah. Is he gonna mount it?
He wasn't sure. Well, if he was going to do a euro or a shoulder, but he did cape it out to do a shoulder because it wasn't just a pumpkin head. Its cape was beautiful, like just perfect, just a perfect cape. So, but, and then we spent the next 3 days trying to get Papy and Justice a goat, and Justice was on suicide watch there for a while because nothing would go right for him this week, and he didn't get one last year. And so now him and Brandon, the original group, like him, Brandon, and Papy were hunting, oh God, like 13, like, I don't remember if it's like 13 years ago or 14 years ago or whatever when they started going. Justice was ahead of Brandon, who had more goats. Now they both have 8 and they're tied. And the rules state that all members must be in we were going to amend the rule book because we ran into a little bit of a hiccup. All members must be present for it to count, right? Well, and then I think it said the GMU, like you have to be in the zone that your tag is valid in for members to be present. So we're going to amend that to where we all have a meeting at the beginning, so we all have to come together for it to start. And then we all agree on when it ends in case somebody goes home early or something like that. Yeah. Or in this instance, 2 guys drive out of the fucking unit while you kill yours.
Right.
Because he had said, hey, we all have to be in the same unit. And Bobby and I weren't in the unit. when he shot it.
Yeah.
And then it was discussed that the unit does travel a weird angle, and we were trying to ascertain exactly where we were when he shot it because we couldn't confirm it. And then is it when he shot it or when you actually got up to it and recovered it? What time was it?
Yeah.
Where were we? Blah, blah, blah. And then I just simply suggested that we have a meeting and state when it ends. And then if you leave the unit, you leave the unit. Doesn't matter.
That's the way to do it. Because someone's
like slamming one on the way in. Because Bobby's coming from California, where we could be coming at different times in different areas. It's like, hey, once everyone's in the area, that we thought that would make sense, but we should probably all meet. So we're all here. Okay, this is the beginning of Team Speed's competition, and then off we go. So, but yeah, and then Papy the whole time I'd gone, Papy just likes to be with the boys.
Right, he likes hanging out at camp.
He loves hanging out. Well, no, he loves being with us, period. Like he's usually driving the Jeep. And never gets out, never goes and sits, never goes on a stalker. It's rare, right? And Papy shot twice this year.
Nice.
But because it was, hey, there's two guys or two groups, right? And there's only two of you, so you got to shoot, Papy.
You got to shoot, yeah.
And Papy shot twice. I was like, all right, Papy shot some arrows. Good deal.
That's cool.
Finally, I was so proud of Papy. Yeah. So, but he's typically more of, I think, of a sit in a ground blind and wait kind of guy.
Yeah.
And we just don't do that, which I'd do that all the time for all kinds of stuff. But when it comes to that,
plenty of that.
I do plenty of that. So I think next year we probably ought to set up some blinds, and Papy can sit in a blind a couple of times, have a decent opportunity, and then just pick him up after dark or something, so he can go. But yeah.
Do you see many rattlesnakes?
I saw one little baby one the whole time, but it wasn't hot.
Did it rattle at you?
No, it was just squirming away as fast as it could. And I mean little baby, like little, like.
Those things have the most poison.
I know.
Yeah.
But it was, it was just, it just gone. All right, cool. Don't walk over there. Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was relatively snake free, which it is a snaky area in general. We just didn't see any, but it wasn't super hot. Right. It never got hot. In fact, we had one evening or one day, my stubborn ass cousin didn't want to pull his awning in on his toy hauler that we were all sleeping in, and it was ripping on the corner. He's like, it was already ripped. I don't care. I'm not taking this. It'll be fine. Nothing will happen. And he left it out when we took off for the day.
Oh, bad idea.
And we also had a wall tent set up outside that was tied off to the corner of the awning where it attached to the trailer because it was trying to blow over. Because we got
was this near the weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had another friend that was down there, and he had his wall tent get the poles bent.
Oh, he was in Brazil too?
Yeah.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was, I think, the worst wind I've ever been. Like, if you felt the trailer like trying to tip, and mind you, I lived in a fifth wheel toy hauler for 6 months after I got divorced, and wind like flies through here frequently. We'll have a windy night and it'll push it, and I never felt anything like that. And meanwhile, he's got his awning out. Well, we got back and the awning was ripped way worse and broken off, and the wall tent ripped open on the side. Yeah, so we had to cut the awning off and disassemble it and take the wall tent apart, and a couple of guys ended up sleeping on the floor in the toy hauler for a couple of days instead of on cots in the wall tent. But that was adventuresome, and it was so freaking bad on my trip back from Brazil, because I drove to Brazil. There was 30 or 40 trees, big trees, that had been cleared out of the road, that it just knocked trees over. Like, bad wind. Just wild. And it was super smoky. And then all that came through and it cleared right out. Well, a half a day later, it was all smoky again. Rained multiple times, which it's more of a desert climate. So it's kind of weird that we got the weather we did. Super grateful for it because I didn't die. Like, I wasn't just like sweating my balls off.
Right, it sounds way better for antelope hunting, than being out in the 100 degrees.
Yeah, no, it was good. But if you were sitting on water, you'd probably be a little disappointed.
I bet.
If you were sitting over an egg field or something like that, you'd probably be all right. But sitting over water, you'd be like, it's not that hot. How many of them are going to come to this tiny little water hole kind of thing? So, but yeah, left there without my belt, but felt good about it. It was super close. And
you got your best antelope.
Yeah, I got my best antelope, and everything was clean and good, and no meat spoilage, no nothing. It was all good because it's always risky. you get over that 80-degree mark, and there were a couple days that were over 80 degrees there, and I did let it sit for 3/4 of a day. It was on ice, but still, and some of the ice melted worse than I expected and got a little water on there, but I think it was all right. So yeah, good trip, very successful. Definitely go again, and we'll probably go back to Brazil next year because it was way better than what we did last year, and the count was plentiful. We were very successful. Yeah, I mean, that ended up being 4 goats killed in basically
2 days.
Not even. Yeah. It was a 24-hour period. We killed 4 goats.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Gave my cousin and Papy plenty of time to go 6 for 6. Plenty of time.
Well, for every year that there's a good year like that, there's quite a few more that aren't.
We earned it. Last year was 1 for 5.
That's right. So
Yeah, and I shot mine on the last day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's brutal. But great trip, great friends. Shouldn't say friends, I should say family.
Yeah.
And Bobby and I are Team Ramrod from here on out, and we will always be each other's wingman. And he found, before I shot my goat, he found a freaking horseshoe out in the field.
Wow.
That he was stalking through. Mm-hmm. Picked it up. He's like, he was going to leave it. He's like, no, I'm going to carry it. And then threw it in the expedition, and we tagged out that day. I shot mine that evening. He shot his the next morning. We didn't have anybody else in our with us get one, but still was like, that's still in the back of the expedition, I think. Yeah, I think I'll leave it in there. It's probably a good omen. A lucky horseshoe.
Well, that's a good thing, man, to have that early season hunt and get your confidence rolling.
Heck yeah. No, I loved it. It was great. And I'll do that every year, that as long as it's still a legal hunt that's available. I'll go do that every year.
Yeah.
They got a great antelope season in Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times, man. I do like antelope hunting. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Were you happy with all your equipment choices and those such things?
Thus far, the you can't argue with the flight of the beast. Like, it flies really good. There's little to no aerodynamic drag compared against everything else that I've ever tried. Because I shoot
Have you
a lot
weighed
of
the
stuff.
beast, by the way? Someone told me they were a couple grains
light.
lighter.
They are. They're 3 grains lighter. And he.
So
I
is it less drag or less weight, or both? It's both.
I think it's both, because 3 grains, the drop difference that we're getting, like if you put a fatal steel, which was the broadhead of choice.
Yeah.
Before, if you put that on, you'll hit.
But that's
at
not,
like 150 yards, you'll hit like 8-9 yards short.
But that's not
that
3
ain't 3 grains.
Okay.
That's drag.
Yeah.
That's surface drag. So it is a very aerodynamic head, and it weighs less. But I'm willing to bet that probably boils down to just that was what their design ended up weighing.
Yeah.
If I had to be honest, that's probably what's reality. But it's a great argument to make. That, if this weighs 3 grains less,
I just heard
it'll shoot
that.
the same. Yeah. It'll compensate the drop difference, and maybe there's truth to that. But in either way, they do
It matches up very well with
my
field
point at 150. My field point and that practice broadhead were within like a couple inches, which is, if you've ever tried to shoot that far away with anything with some drag on it, it is insane. Mm-hmm. Like, normally it's 8-10 yards short, and it was like within a couple inches. So that's very aerodynamically compatible. So I did like that. Cole was not shooting a beast. He was shooting a fatal steel, and the hole was just so much more impressive. That third blade, man, there's just something about that. It just makes a freaking gash, and I can't get past it. And every time I think about going away from it, I'll see a hole from one of those, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, what'd you say one time why 3 blades are illegal in wars?
The Geneva Convention states you cannot use a 3-blade knife because it creates a wound that won't heal.
Yeah.
You will die.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody stabs you and the other person dies in a battle, like, you'll recover, you won't die.
Yeah, because you're talking about a flap versus a,
Yeah, and I'm sure a 4-blade that's equal would do the same thing, other than you're going to see a little more resistance. But
it'll just look more like a diamond than a triangle.
Yeah, but Dudley shot a mule deer. I think it was yesterday or the day before.
Oh, really?
He posted it on Instagram. Well, he shot an elk already in Canada.
Damn.
Then he shot a mule deer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the hole in it was like that. He's got that new T2 broadhead, which I played with a little bit, and it wasn't quite as aerodynamic, and the blade seemed a little stiff to open compared to the others. But it looks like it would be wicked, like it would do a really good job, and what he's shown so far is it does. But it's got that mule deer had a gash in it like that. I mean, that's huge.
Well, I think we live in an era where we have quite a few good broadhead choices.
It's definitely getting more,
Yeah,
for sure. And he's shooting it at elk and shooting at mule deer and big animals. It should be fine, but
yeah.
I still kind of question the 2-inch big cutting diameter displacement. But in theory, if you look at that 1.25 inch cut fatal steel, which is what it is, Cole's had a hole in it like that. Well, that's way more than 1.25 inches. So if it's opening like that and stretching the skin before it cuts it to create that hole, well, it's still just displacing the same amount of pressure. So I'm not all that convinced a smaller cutting diameter in that scenario is actually going to save you a lot of penetration. But I've had phenomenal luck with that head, and I just have such a hard time not going that way. Just when we first tried a beast, because I took like one pack of them, because they're $60 for 2 broadheads and a practice blade, very expensive, and shot it, and it hit about where my field point did at 150. I'm like, what? Like, I was like, please hit the target. Please hit the target on a 4-foot target. Please hit the target. Because normally you'd hit the dirt like 3-4 feet shy of the target. And it actually hit within like a couple inches of where my field point was. And I did it again, and it hit about the same spot. I did it again, and it hit about the same spot. I'm like, holy shit, there's no drag on here. And I like being able to shoot as far as possible. It's just fun for me. And so part of my determining factor in that scenario was, well, I can shoot this broadhead farther. So I can sight in my bow farther.
Without changing your sight
Without
tape.
changing my sight tape.
Yeah.
And I liked that. And I shot field points and broadheads next to each other, and they only really started to separate past like 130, 140, and it was very little. It was like that. So I moved it to where the broadhead hit and just kept the same sight tape on it because I could shoot field points out to 130 or wouldn't even impact different. So I was very impressed, but we did have some couple of things that you really need to be cautious of with a beast if you're going to shoot a beast. Like I said, flight's great. Blades are sharper than shit. The little finger things that come with there, and if you're going to go out hunting in the field, you might want to put a set in your pocket because if you touch something with it at all, it'll pop open, and now you got to close it, right? And the mechanism to close it is to push on the blades, right? So you better hang on to that, or you're going to have to put it like between a rock and your shoe and try to shut it with your foot, which we did a couple of times. It doesn't take very much to open those blades. Like you can push really hard on a piece of brush, like of just stiff grass, and it might open it. It doesn't take a lot to open them. They open really easy. Putting it back in your quiver, be super careful that you line it up. If you push on it at all, it pops open. And you've got to take something out to close it. So that part wasn't ideal. Everybody that killed an antelope other than Cole had beasts. Bobby's was penetration, like he shot lengthwise through his goat, right? It poked out the chest and then worked its way back out. Like it hit the breastbone. And he was some distance. Once again, I'm not going to disclose somebody's unless they.
No, it's up to them.
Just up to them, and he's not here to ask. But yeah, just like massive penetration, like massive, and we're all shooting really light stuff. So,
but if you shoot him in the back of the head, it doesn't go through the mouth.
No, my arrow broke off. Like it snapped. The ferrule broke off where my insert and my ferrule met. After it snapped right off. But yeah, his went all the way in, severed the heart. Like it was 2/3 of the heart was cut right across. The blade hit just perfectly vertical and sliced it right open. And that thing bled out so fast it wasn't even funny. Brandon's, I want to say he broke a tip off. And there was a follow-up shot made on Cole's where a beast was used and it broke the blade off.
You ever eat the heart?
Always. We had antelope heart burritos that night.
That's cool. I like heart.
Yeah, heart's.
I think heart's much more palatable than liver.
Yeah, I still don't eat liver. I might have to make myself one of these days because I hear it's really good for you. But my dad always ate the heart, and I never did. I refused to eat it all the way up until he died. So it's one of those things that whenever I kill something, I eat the heart because my dad did it. And so that can kind of live on with it.
I don't think
and
it tastes bad at all.
Well,
I've never really trimmed it up. Like a lot of people will do a good job trimming it up. I just kind of sliced it laterally and fried it in butter. I thought it was fine.
Fellow bow hunters and bow huntresses, thanks for listening. Appreciate your support. If you'd like to help support the pod, we have a little coupon code with Chaco called Josh and Tim. And I have this little archery shop called podiumarcher.com, little website. We sell some archery stuff on there. Lots of goods. Use coupon code TimC to save you a little money. Help support the pod. Leave a review. Subscribe wherever you're listening, and we'll get back to the pod. Well, my cousin does cuts out every little vein and everything out of it, makes little cubes and whatnot, and then cook it up with bacon and onions and peppers and salt and pepper.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's going to be amazing.
Make a burrito out of it. Oh, man, that was so good.
Bomb.com.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just, it's just
Should've
really,
made
really
a YouTube
good.
video of that, man. I'm telling you what.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I probably should. I should save a heart from something I kill and make
antelope heart, tacos. Whew.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's really good, dude.
Yeah.
Liver, that's another story. You have to figure that one out.
Yeah, you got to be perverse to eat liver. I don't know what the deal is.
I don't know. You seen that guy on the internet that does nothing but eat liver and he's all jacked?
Oh, the guy that's all roided out?
Isn't he all roided out?
Yeah, he's roided out.
Claiming he was natural. Liver King?
Yeah.
Isn't he Liver King? Was that what it was?
It's more than just liver, yeah.
Yeah, it's liver and the sauce.
Yeah. Liver King made a lot of money.
All I do is eat liver covered in steroids.
Selling that brand, though, and making little weird videos.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was Team Speed Goat. 2024, Brandon has the belt. I will destroy him next year. But you get it for now, buddy.
Yeah.
We'll have to meet back in April again to discuss the rule book. We make amendments to the rule book and officially score everything because it's all dried by then and get our official scores in the book.
Yeah. Biggest antelope, though. Antelope will be on my hunt calendar next year for sure. Yeah.
I do have a bone to pick with the way they score those officially because I didn't know how they scored them officially.
Yeah. What is it?
Well, so based off of how long the beam is, you get circumference measurements, right? And then if it just happens to land just right, and it's based off of age because their kickers or whatever get higher as they get older. If your circumference measurement happens to land where the kicker is, you have a giant goat because you get to go all the way around the kickers.
Or if it lands just above, then you have a much smaller goat.
Right. And so the way mine also positioned, like Brandon's goat scored like 7 inches or 6 inches bigger than mine. If my goat would have been that much higher on his kickers, they just scored about the same. And Brandon's goat looked way bigger than my goat. It was clearly a much older goat. Like he was probably 2 years older than mine. Yeah. At least one for sure, but probably two.
So you didn't feel like there was any discrepancy about who won?
No.
Yeah.
No. I there were a couple of back and forths with it.
Little jabs. Yeah.
Well, there was a couple with one were we in the unit, and I didn't even think about that. Like somebody else brought it up. It's like, hey, you guys weren't in the unit when he shot this thing. According to that book, he doesn't get the belt. And then Brad's like, I don't want anybody's pity. Take it. No. I'm like, no. Hold on. Like, I'm just saying, like, the discussion of this is, do we need to amend the rule book? We're all present. We can amend the rule book. Do we need to amend the rule book? And then that brought up well, you all have to be in the same tag unit, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, hang on. Let's change that. Let's change that to where we all meet. And then it ends on this time. And the premise of that was that one guy couldn't go back for 2 weeks when everybody else was gone and try to kill a bigger goat and take the belt. The whole premise of the belt is it's the reward for the guy who does the best when our group is together. Once our group disbands, the belt's no longer.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is someone's wife is going to get sick or kid's going to get sick,
exactly.
And they're going to have to leave.
That was the exact thing. It was like, what happens when something goes wrong with somebody's family and they got to leave? It's over.
It's just going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, we agree on the date and time that it ends when we start from. Like I had to be back for a funeral,
right?
For Grandma's funeral, and so I had to leave really early before them. I mean, they all still stayed and hunted the last morning to afternoon with Justice and Papy. And I started driving at like 4:30 in the morning or something like that. Yeah. From Brazil. I made really good time.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. Great trip.
Sounds like a great experience.
Yeah, it's hard to beat.
It's always hard for me to wrap my head still around hunting that early. Just because, traditional for me growing up was hunting season started October 1st.
Yeah.
So when I go hunting in August, it's still hard for me to flip those.
I don't know. I need to send a message to Dudley and ask him, hey, where do you get to go hunting elk in Canada that early, and how much it costs?
Oh, I can tell you about it. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I understand that program. Yeah.
Well, and James got
I don't need to blow it up on the internet.
James got a coos deer yesterday or a day
Yeah,
before.
which I don't hear about anyone hunting coos deer in the Velvet.
Yeah.
So where was he? Do you
I'm
know?
assuming it's in California. I think they're open now.
That'd be crazy because I don't hear about people shooting coos deers in California. He must have been way down south. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, he messaged me last night.
It's all happening now though. Like people are heading out everywhere.
Yep.
Elk season's on the cusp.
Idaho elk opens Friday.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
It's
Whitetail opens in Washington on September 1st.
It's upon us.
2 more days. Yeah, it's here.
But we got a pretty strong reaction from our comment squad about Crispy's water buffalo. So I figured we'd just talk through that a little bit, react to it, if you will, like the internet likes to call it.
Well, it's funny. We were talking about that before we turned this on.
Yeah.
And so we tried to find the video so we could both go back and watch it, and the video's gone.
Yeah, it looks like it's been taken down. I'm not at this point.
Well, was it? Well,
he might have made it private. Maybe he'll make it public again. I don't know.
Yeah, was it? It was on his channel though, right? It wasn't on Ultra Views.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure I saw it like a week or two ago. Yeah. No, I know I watched a clip of it.
So I only watched a small clip of it. You want to tell me what you remember from it, since we couldn't go back and look at it?
Yeah. So fast forward to basically the kill shot. Chris takes a relatively broadside shot, and he hits it a little behind the shoulder, right? I think
so.
He hits it with a good arrow behind the shoulder, what looks to be a pretty fatal arrow. And then the water buffalo like runs and turns, and then he takes a follow-up shot. And I believe that was the one that was pretty frontal. Not perfectly frontal, I don't think, but it kind of hit him like, it looked like high shoulder, neck-ish frontal. Mm-hmm. And then I think that bull turns, and he puts 1 or 2 more arrows in it.
That sounds about what I remember.
Yeah.
And there was a whole bunch of criticism about taking the frontal.
Yeah, there was quite a bit, which is interesting.
What blows my mind in that, I don't understand. He already shot it.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing really quick too, is it's much easier to be an armchair quarterback than it is to be the person in the moment. So
sure.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20. Whatever we say, I don't want it to come across like we want to put judgment on someone else. It's like we can just learn from another person's hunt. You know what I mean?
Right.
You learn, you live, you adjust. And when you're on the internet, you don't really get to put it out to an audience to get to see how things feel or react. Right. You kind of maybe watch it yourself, or maybe an editor watches it as well, or maybe you have a friend watch it, and then you put it out to the internet for tens of thousands of people to watch and judge you. So it's kind of weird in that way. But yeah. Anyway.
So, once you put an arrow in an animal, there is no such thing as an unethical shot in my brain, personally. If you already shot that animal and that animal is suffering, shoot it. Mm-hmm. Again, even if it's a bad angle, even if you don't think it's going to be perfect, put another arrow in him, try to get him to bleed out quicker so he doesn't suffer any longer. Yeah. So I don't get that criticism at all. It didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, me neither.
There was a mound of, I read the comments. I watched a short little bit of it and then went back and read the comments for a little bit, which I don't normally do, but I had heard about it from a couple of people. So I was like, all right, I'll probably go watch it.
Yeah.
And the amount of, you see, that's what you get for shooting a light arrow. He got two arrows in one side, out the other side. And now the arrow didn't completely pass through, but it poked out the other side. That is the concept, boys and girls. You're trying to get an arrow all the way through the cavity, out the other side. So that is a 450 grain arrow with a mechanical broadhead shooting through a Cape buffalo or water buffalo. Water buffalo, which is one of the largest animals on the frickin' world, body-wise size, right?
Yeah.
And he poked out the other side completely. 2 arrows.
And I wish I remembered the broadhead. I can't recollect it, but I think it was mechanicals. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was like a G5 dead meat, because I know he shot that through quite a bit of stuff.
So I don't get the shade. To me, the heavy arrow fanboys or audience just love to point out if that was heavier, this would have done it. They want to blame it on the weight. Mm-hmm. What more do you really want him to do if he poked out the other side?
Right.
Like if that broadhead went out the other side, how can he do a better job than that? I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't wrap my head around it. And the criticism from hunters against other hunters is ridiculous. If you have never lost an animal, wounded an animal, or not put a second arrow in an animal, if you've ever done any of those things, shut your mouth. You have nothing to say because you're trying to put down an animal that it didn't go perfect. And in reality, so what are you telling him to do? Make that first perfect shot and it still stand there, so don't shoot it again? That's basically what you're saying. You're saying, oh, you're being irresponsible by putting another arrow in that animal. It's still standing. It's still moving. Shoot it again. I don't care if it's perfect. I don't care if it doesn't look good on YouTube.
Yeah.
Your responsibility as a hunter is to put that animal down after you've already injured it.
Yeah.
Period. Whether that injury is lethal or not, it is your responsibility to do everything within your power to kill that animal and put it down as quickly and as humanely as you can. So anybody who's criticizing him, you need to shut your mouth. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I just, it pisses me off because I guarantee you, people in there making comments either have never hunted effectively, never killed anything, or have never had a bad experience when they've hunted. Everyone's going to have one, might have several. You don't know, so you should not criticize somebody because that shade comes around to you.
It will no matter what, because an animal's going to move. You're going to nick something. Something's going to happen that's going to create an arrow that hits in a spot that's not ideal. And at that point, like you said, your job is to get more arrows in it.
It is. I'm sorry, but that's the point.
And if your angles aren't good, you don't have a lot of choices. But the more shots you put in that animal, the faster it's going to die.
Yeah. So to try to blame that on anything, which it wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him. I really do. Yeah. Could have chosen to edit that differently. You probably didn't need to show you shooting it 4 times. It's probably the only real screw up there.
Well, and the timing of it was they're launching their brand new arrow, which there's already some controversy. It's just another reason for that same crowd to get a little bit of fire going.
Haters gonna hate, and that's the reality of life, right? They're gonna, but
the bigger you get, the more haters you're gonna get.
He doesn't deserve an ounce of criticism for what he did.
No,
he did what any responsible hunter would have done, which was if that thing's still standing there, shoot it again.
Yeah,
I shot my goat again, and it was like his paw was moving. I'm like, well, if there's a chance he's still alive, I'm going to shoot him again.
Yeah. Which could just be, what do you call that? There's like the neuron still kicking.
Yeah.
Like when you shoot a bird and the feet are still kicking. You know what I mean?
That's what it could have been.
You shoot the head off a grouse, its feet are fluttering.
But it's not worth the risk to me.
Right.
If it's still moving as you're coming up to it, just shoot it again.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that. And to blow shade at that guy for that, I mean, it wasn't running. It was like gradually walking there. If you look at the shot, if I remember it, it never really left the frame of the shot. I mean, you could have just sat there and watched it and hoped it died correctly.
No, that's
but
not
if you have the opportunity to shoot it again, shoot it again. And I don't understand. Like I said, videoing a hunt, it probably would have simply been smarter to not include all the shots in it. But he didn't do anything wrong.
It's reality.
It's reality. He didn't do anything wrong. So just don't throw shade at the guy for something you'd probably do if you were in his shoes.
Yeah.
But he's crispy and he's shooting a water buffalo and it probably costs a lot of money. So let's hate on him because I don't get to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what most of that boils down to.
Well, and if that person at home is like, oh, I'm a heavy arrow person, and they see that, they're like, well, why wasn't he using a heavy arrow? When I've actually evolved quite a bit on my thoughts as I've gotten to be around more and more experiences. The Broadhead is, I don't know what percentage of penetration it is, but it's a lot because it does the slicing and the dicing. So if you were a person and said, hey, I wanted more penetration on that water buffalo, the first option could have been a different Broadhead choice.
Well, assuming that he was shooting that one, because I don't know.
I'm not positive either, but let's assume it was a 3-blade mechanical.
Well, and if we want to, argue what percentage it is, right?
Yeah.
Well, I know when I was discussing things with Ranch Fairy, who is the heavy arrow 3-to-1 cut ratio, best penetrating thing on the planet, I said, do you agree it's 90% of it's the Broadhead? And he said, yes. Well, so if he thinks it,
yeah,
I thought the exact same thing. It's like, that's the exact same number I would put on it. It's 90% the Broadhead, 10% the weight.
Yeah.
So
It's a lot because every time you're going to rip through something, there's that added resistance. That's coming from the broadhead, not the arrow.
Correct.
And then the momentum is pushing on the back of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. Easy to be an armchair quarterback. Like you said, if I feel the same way, if you had a good arrow in it, you're just going to keep shooting. It's just unfortunate. The way it looked kind of looked like a pin cushion because, some of those arrows didn't get a lot of penetration because he was just shooting the shots he had and hit the shoulder or whatever. And a water buffalo is a big, thick ass animal,
Well, if you don't make a perfect shot on a frontal, it's not going to penetrate very much, right? So let's just take that arrow as an example of it hit something hard, and maybe a 700 grain version of that 470 grain or arrow.
I think he's about 420 or whatever.
I thought it was 450 something or whatever, but it's somewhere anyway in there. I don't think there's a really big difference between 430 and 450.
Yeah.
Right. But if that arrow was 600, 700 grains, does he actually still get through in that same spot when the hide's over an inch thick? But his Instagram post is still up, and it states you got 2 holes with 2 arrows out the other side, 1 and 2. So how's it going to be more lethal with a heavier arrow? I don't understand.
No.
Explain to me how it's more lethal with a heavier arrow. I'm not convinced that where he shot that one in the shoulder where it didn't penetrate would be any different with a heavier arrow. And there's already 2 arrows all the way poking out the other side. So.
Yeah. Well, if you were to armchair quarterback a little bit and be like, Josh Jones is going to go water buffalo hunting, what do you think you would take?
Well, depends on the environment. If the pH or guide or whatever they call them over there is going to say, yeah, you're going to get you to 20 yards. Like, well, if it's 20 yards, I'd probably shoot something heavy.
What's heavy?
I'd probably lean more towards like the Ranch Fairy philosophy. If I'm shooting a hog 20 yards, I don't know why I would shoot a light arrow. I don't need to. If you're going to get close, distance isn't a factor. Reaction time on a water buffalo is probably 0.
Yeah, 0.
You're not jumping your string.
No.
It doesn't matter if your arrow needs to get there quick or slow. It's not like an antelope where they react to everything and they're going to fly out of the picture. So the longer it takes your arrow to get there, the worse it's going to be. That animal's not going to react. I'd probably shoot a heavier arrow, and I'd probably shoot a 3-to-1 cut ratio broadhead or something really long and skinny and that I know would penetrate and pass through, because getting through the hide is the hardest part. And this more angle like that you have, or whatever you call it, steeper or shallower or whatever.
Depends what way you're measuring it, but yeah.
Okay. Well, something that looked like that and something that was single bevel because it takes less resistance to cut, and something that's super sharp, and I would probably use a 2-blade broadhead. I'd probably use an iron will. And they don't make a ton like this, but they are just ridiculously sharp.
Yeah.
Like really, 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 really sharp. I wouldn't use anything that had any aluminum on it anywhere. It would have to be titanium or steel. And like I said, I wouldn't care how much it weighed. Now, if you're telling me we're going to free range hunt a water buffalo and they're going to be somewhere between 40 and 80 yards, it's a different conversation. I would probably get the lightest, good angled 2-blade broadhead combination I could find, and I'd probably shoot a pretty light arrow and make sure it's just really sharp. But if you're taking speed benefit out of the equation, because that's what you're doing. If you're shooting at 20 yards on an animal that's not going to react, there is no reason to be fast. None. I mean, that's like saying, oh, if you were shooting indoor, what would you shoot? Oh, I'd shoot a super light, high speed, blah, blah, blah. No, why? There's no advantage. If there's an advantage to shooting speed's really helpful. But if there's no advantage to doing it, like, Ranch Fairy shoots pigs at 20 yards. Makes perfect sense. I'd use that. I just wouldn't dictate that to people who hunted elk at 60 yards. Probably not the right tool.
Or a whitetail that might jump your string at 30.
Yeah, I mean it's all relative, right?
Sure.
There's wins and losses with every type of thing that you use. But if you're telling me I'm hunting water buffalo and the pH is telling me we're going to get you up to 20 yards, like Chris's deal, that's what most people shoot them at. It's 20 yards. Like, all right, I'd probably shoot. I'd probably shoot an iron will. I'd probably shoot like a Snyder core system. I'd probably shoot a heavier 166 arrow because it's going to penetrate better. I'd probably shoot like a VAP SS or something like that with a stainless core in it, or a VAP TKO, because there's not going to be an advantage to the speed. Or honestly, that arrow's probably pretty damn durable.
Well,
I'd shoot that arrow with maybe a different componentry or something.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, but there's lack of componentry choices for it.
Sure.
It's a good arrow.
Australia's got some badass bow hunters, and they always show up in our comment section. And every time I hear them talk about water buffalo, it seems like it's 500-ish grain arrow, 500 to 525, single bevel type stuff. Mm-hmm. And that seems about right. That seems like that's going to do the job on most shot styles.
Yeah, I'd probably shoot a heavier bow, and I'd probably end up putting a lot of weight in the front. And then whatever I had to put behind it to tune it out is what I put behind it to tune it out. But the arrow, everybody talks about the arrow, and it's not important. It's not. It's the broadhead. It's always the broadhead. And even the people that push arrow stuff know it's the broadhead and talk about it being the broadhead. It's more important than anything.
Yeah.
It's got to be sharp.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. We're going to close on that note. Fire's out. It's hunting season. Hope you all get to hunt hard, hunt your best. And if you're not hunting soon, hopefully you're getting prepped for whatever that is. It's right. It's here. It's here, man.
Thwack.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right.
My turn, Dad, read?
Yeah, I don't remember, but that.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
That sounds good.
Yeah. I didn't realize I'd spent 45 minutes talking about the antelope. Yeah. Well, that's what I figured we were going to talk about today. You said we had to talk about that.
It's so cold in here, she's shivering.
She's right next to a fire. You're Nancy.